Ah, hospital food. The lovely time to be in the hospital. And wow, the food they give to people in the hospital is a bit ridiculous. We're going to be talking about that today and also kind of my tips of what to do if you find yourself in the hospital and especially a guest in the hospital because you were there. So, welcome back to the Grains and Grit podcast, y'all. So, this is the podcast where you get me, Felicia, from the YouTube channel Grains and Grit, where you get me unsifted, that is unfiltered, unedited, and kind of where we basically just sit down and have a more lengthier conversation as if you were sitting with me with some coffee and we were just having a little chat. So, we're going to be talking about hospital food. This is something that I've been on my brain for almost a year. And I wanted to chat with y'all about, and I definitely got a lot of comments whenever I posted about this months ago. So, backstory of why I'm doing this. So, if you are new here, hi, first of all, my name is Felicia, and I teach all about real whole grains, all from a biblical perspective, why to be milling your own grains, consuming whole grains in your house, myth busting, the whole thing with bread, all those things. So, also, if you are new here, I know a thing or two about hospitals because back in March of 2025, depending on whenever you have listening to this one, in March of 2025, my husband was shot multiple times by our neighbor and life flighted to the hospital and all of that. So we spent a very long time in the hospital. So, in regards to that, to answer immediate questions that I know pop into people's brain right now. Yes, the guy who shot him as of this recording is in jail, no bond, and we're still going through the whole investigation, all of that. We're still going through the judicial process with that. So please keep your prayers about that. And also, no, my husband is not necessarily better. He did survive. He definitely should have died in those woods. The Lord was with him, and the Lord miraculously saved him. He was shot, from what we can tell, about 5 times. Most of them were kind of more abdominal type shots, but unfortunately, one of the bullets did hit his spinal cord, and he is paralyzed from about the waist down. So we are now dealing with this whole world of ADA, disability, all of those things. But if you've been around for a while and you've been following us this whole journey, it's been insane. But y'all's support has been out of this world. And I can't thank y'all enough. Y'all's prayers and love and comments and support has just been incredible. And I'm truly, truly humbled. Both my husband and I are so grateful for that. So as of right now, just to give y'all an update, so we're dealing with this, but our main thing right now is that he's in chronic pain every single day. And that's something that we are trying to navigate, is to figure out how to manage his pain, to alleviate his pain. So please keep that in prayers. And if you really want to see, keep up with any updates, I try to do post updates. I am in need of posting another one, but you can actually check this out on our Support Now page. And I'll link this in the description box. But if you go to supportnow.org/Jocelyn family, and that's Jocelyn, JOS as in Sam, C as in cat, E as in egg, LYN as in Nancy, family. So supportnow.org/Jocelyn family. That's where you can view any updates and things like that. Okay, so long introduction and catching people up who may be new. So, needless to say, when this happened, my husband was in ICU alone for a few weeks and then regular hospital for a couple weeks. And then he was in like inpatient rehab for a few more weeks. And so it was like a couple of months before he ever even got to come home. And so I spent a lot of time in the hospital away from my home. And y'all, that was so hard. it was so hard. The hardest, crazy enough, besides him, possibly dealing with the fact that it was probably a good week before he was out of the danger zone of actually dying. So, besides that, once we got past that, a big difficulty was just the separation of our family. Because we're just always together. I'm a homeschooling mama. My husband had also worked from home at that time, so we were always together. And honestly, the separation of our entire family for weeks, that was super, super, super hard. Yeah, that was really hard. but the Lord has been with us and he's been good. But I say all this to say that I was also being away from my home means mama wasn't cooking. Like at all. And a lot of eating out, so on and so forth. So let me tell you a little bit of a not humorous story. I mean, I guess it's kind of funny because it had been maybe like a week and a half, a week or two. So my husband was sedated for a couple days. I mean, he was out of it on a ventilator, like all of that stuff. So and even when he came on out of it, whenever we woke him up, he was like on a lot of pain medication. And so I think it was probably about a week before he was starting to kind of realize things going on around us. I mean, he was talking to us and everything, but I think he definitely started observing the things that I was eating in the hospital. Let's face it, y'all, hospital stuff. Now, he wasn't eating hospital food at this time, but I was eating out all the time. I wasn't home. I had to buy everything, get all my meals. Now, I had some wonderful friends that literally they're like, whatever you want, we will bring it to you. And I'm so grateful to all of my community that I had here. Y'all were amazing. But I was doing, I was eating out a lot, which like we hardly eat out at all. Large family, you don't eat out a lot. So this was way off of my normal diet. So yep, white flour happened. Okay. There was, I gotta admit, they have one place in that hospital that had some killer biscuits and gravy. All white flour, but it was good. And but regardless, I was definitely not eating the healthiest. And about a week into this week and a half, my husband looks over and says, Felicia, you cannot keep this up. Like this is not good. And I knew, I was like, oh yeah, because by that time, y'all, after about a week of eating out, I don't know how people eat out all the time because me doing it for a week, like breakfast, lunch, supper, oh, mama was starting to feel it. Okay. My body was not exactly happy about certain things. And I definitely felt the lack of my good food that I had. Unfortunately, there at the hospital, at least what I found, you either had like, your typical fast food places or even the cafeteria style food that they had. Any, if what I had seen there, maybe somewhere else in the hospital, they had it. Not good salad, not many good salad options. And I will be honest, y'all. Let me just be flat out honest. There's something to comfort food. And I was wanting it. Okay. Whenever this happened, especially that first week, I was not caring about, where's the healthiest food? What's the real options? I'll be honest. I'll be flat out honest that having, you know, those comfort foods, I liked it. It was nice it was good to have. Was it healthy? No, no, but not the highest priority for me at that time. However, but I was starting to suffer from this. So my husband looked at me and said, You've got to figure something out." He's like, "You have friends, you have people here who have literally offered you whatever you're wanting. You need to ask," which I have a horrible time asking for help. Going through all this has made me learn to ask for help, but I was horrible asking for help beforehand. And so what I did was, I knew I was still going to be in the hospital for a while, but I'm like, okay, we got to change something. So I actually have two friends that I know mill their own grains, and one of them makes a killer sourdough from 100% fresh and milled wheat. And so I reached out to them and said, "Hey, I need help. Could um could you possibly send me some of your bread or muffins or something with 100% freshly milled wheat? I will pay you for it. Just let me know. I'll come and get it, whatever it is." And they were, of course, like, because they were awesome, they were like, "Oh, absolutely. Here you go." Like, no payment. They would refuse to accept it. And so one of my friends, gave me two different types of muffins. One of them is like a chocolate chip, but I think it like has apple in it or something. Either way, she sent me the recipe. She had modified it. Oh my word, it was so good. Another one, I think, was like a pumpkin type muffin, which was also absolutely amazing. But y'all, when I got those muffins, my body was just like, thank you, real food. And that was so wonderful to have for me to be able to eat because those just made an easy, quick breakfast. I could keep them in there in the room with me. Um, and that was absolutely wonderful to have. And she's like, anytime you want some more, she didn't live that far from the hospital, and she's like, just let me know and I'll get them to you. And so God bless you, Sarah. I love you so much. Thank you for that. And the other one, Marianne, I love you, made a killer sourdough bread, and she sent me a loaf, and oh, that was wonderful. And so what I ended up doing is then we went to Publix because we're in Florida and we're the land of Publix. And I actually got some healthier options. So we actually got some really good like cheeses, some healthy like deli type meats. We got oh, what's it called? Where you ferment. Oh yeah, really bad at the gardenera stuff, which is like a fermented cauliflower and carrots and stuff like that. Like it's something with Italian. So you like ferment a lot of these things that like soak in oil, and it's really, really good, especially when you put it on bread, cheeses, olives. So we actually just got real food, and then we were able to just have that in the hospital. And by we, not my husband. They weren't allowing him to eat yet, but me and my brother-in-law, who was there a lot, we were able to have those, and that was so wonderful to be able to have. And so right now we're speaking as someone, if you find yourself having to always either be gone all the time, you're in a hospital situation, you are not the patient but you are there, I do recommend of just being creative. If you know people around that actually mill their own bread, I mean, reach out to them, y'all. If anyone was to reach out to me in this situation and be like, absolutely, what do you want, I'll make it for you, and I'll get it to you. Okay. And I know that we have amazing people in our freshly milled community that I know would absolutely do this no charge, probably. So reach out to those who know. And there are many, many Facebook groups for freshly milled bread. Be sure you're a member of those. And if you find yourself in this situation, post on there. Say, hey, I'm having to be stuck in a hospital for a while. Anyone in this area, wherever it is, and I guarantee you, you've got someone close by. Someone will be there, or at least give you tips or offer to help or something. So many, many thanks to my friends, Sarah and Marianne, who kept me with freshly milled grains while I was stuck in a hospital situation, because that was so wonderful. Like my body needed real food so bad. And I felt a difference whenever I was then eating real food. So not always perfect. Of course, I'm still eating out, but just to have that was so helpful to my body that is used to consuming only 100% freshly milled grains, wheat, breads, things like that. So that's my biggest suggestion with that is, if you find yourself in this situation, reach out to friends. Another thing is, do what I did, where you go to the grocery store and you actually see what you can find. There are what's the brand? There's like I think Kodiak brand that actually has granola bars and things like that, that is actually whole grain, good ingredients, non-GMO. So you're going to pay for it. Okay, it is more expensive, and I would definitely not be buying this all the time because it would be way too expensive for my family. But in a situation like that, depending on the grocery store, you can find pretty good options, real food that is actually doesn't require an oven. It's easy snacks for you that is more of a whole food. Of course, you can find fruits. Grapes are a wonderful thing because they're already in bite-sized pieces. So bananas is another one. So that's one thing that I recommend is, just go to the grocery store instead of the restaurant and see what you can find there that can work for your situation. So for us, like when we were in ICU, there definitely was no fridge. So I had to have like a little cooler bag, and, it's not like I could buy like and all this bulk stuff. But if I remember right, yeah, when we got to a regular hospital room, I think he had a fridge. I might be mistaken. I may be thinking of when he went to rehab. I know when he went to rehab, um, a, a inpatient rehab, there was a fridge in the room that we could keep things in, which was great. I cannot remember if our hospital had it. I may be remembering wrong. But in saying that, get to know your nurses, because if there's something like, not a ton, okay, not a ton, but if there's a little something that you have, like maybe yogurt or something, ask your nurses like, hey, is there a place that I could put this in a fridge? Because many hospitals have like a refreshment area where you can get water, things like that. And oftentimes I saw that there was a fridge in there, so probably just label it. But I think they would be real willing to help you out. So just be nice to your nurses, y'all, and ask them and see if they can help you. Now, let's actually talk about being a patient. Hmm. Y'all, the things. So, with my husband, He, due to multiple surgeries, things like that, he was on a feeding tube for a time. Nothing I could do about that. Nothing I can do about that. That was, doctor's orders. And this is where, and but after that, when he was now allowed to start eating food. Now, this is where just know this is not medical advice. I'm not telling you what you should and should not do. But so listen, overall, listen to your doctors. There are reasons why they put you on a liquid diet. There's a reason. If they say you're not allowed to eat, there's a reason. Okay. So I highly suggest you listen to them when it comes to that. Because most likely, if you're on a liquid diet, it's because you're post surgery and your body's probably not ready to handle it yet. However, in saying that, when my husband was able to be transferred more to a liquid diet, they were just going to be giving him like broth, from the hospital cafeteria, which I know is probably not exactly great broth. And so I actually offered, "Hey, I have canned chicken stock at home that I made from like our chickens that we raise ourselves. And I know what's all in this. And I know that it's like the optimal nutrition." I said, "Can I bring this?" And he can have that. And then the nurses were like, "Absolutely." And they kept it in their fridge. And whenever we could give it to him, they had like a microwave or something, which I know is not ideal, but we're working with what we got. And I was able to at least give him some of our chicken broth. Again, he was already going to be on that anyway. That's what they were going to be giving him. I was just able to give him a better option and just ask. Okay, just ask if you can do that. They had no problem with me doing that. Another way that we helped him is the doctor kept insisting that he drink these Ensure shakes. And if I hear about Ensure one more time, I I promise you, I'm pretty sure that the doctor, and again, I really am thankful for this doctor. He helped save my husband's life. However, he was pushing Ensure protein shakes like he was being sponsored and paid by Ensure. Okay. And I have no doubt in my mind that Ensure paid a lot of money to be going into these hospitals and, and all that stuff. No doubt in my mind they do that. However, the problem was as soon as they brought it, and I immediately looked at the label, and y'all, like, high fructose corn syrup, corn sugar or corn syrup, more sugar. And it was all this fake stuff that I'm like, this is supposed to help him. Are you trying to send him into a diabetic attack? But the reason why they were doing this is because of protein. They were like, he needs to have protein. Protein helps the body heal. I do not disagree about that. But I do disagree about giving someone the amount of sugar that's like in a can of soda for the sake of giving them protein. And so we're like, yeah, we're so not doing that. So what I did is thankfully I was able to go back to Publix, my beloved Publix, and they did have options, better options. The protein drinks I just bought myself, but we were able to get it. It was like 1 gram of sugar and non-GMO ingredients. And I think it probably tasted better for him, but still getting the protein. So we're still following what the doctor is wanting him to do, but we just did it in a better way. And yes, that meant that I had to spend some money out of my pocket. Okay. And maybe you don't have that option, but for me, praise the Lord, we did. Okay. The Lord did provide. And we are very grateful for that. So that's something that we were able to do as well. And then, as my husband was able to start eating real foods and everything, I was able to have the breads there for him. And, he had to listen to his body. He had to go slow. It was, months before he was really able to eat kind of normal again. Again, he had a lot of work done on him. A lot of those shots were to the abdomen, and so it took a long time. But at the very least, I knew was like, wow, let's give you of all times to give you the most nutritionally dense food. Let's give you that, even if it's only in small quantities. It's better than nothing. And when the doctor said, "Hey, you need to eat more protein," okay. We're going to find better protein, like better options for protein, and things like that. So that is the struggle with hospital foods. I really wish, like, oh, this is something whenever RFK Jr. came about that I was like, oh, good, tackle this, tackle the abominable hospital food that they feed people, the people who are sick, who need nutrition more than ever, and we feed them junk. Okay. Like clearly you're wanting them to come back. But that's the thing with our modern healthcare is the United States healthcare. It is, I would say, probably the best in the world as far as trauma care, and by trauma care, like you got into a car wreck, you broke a bone, you sliced your finger off with a knife, those type of things where you definitely need medical care. The United States shines with that. It's the things that they did with my husband to save his life. It is astounding. I mean, I didn't even know these things were possible. Okay. And I'm so thankful for the hospital and the doctors that did that. I'm not knocking them for that. But the nutritional side of things, especially those like with cancer, and cancer studies have come out, that sugar feeds. Cancer really likes sugar. And so you're allowing cancer patients to just eat whatever they want, eat all the sugar, these sodas, all these things. I've seen diabetics where they're just drinking soda in the hospital, eating cakes and, all these things. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. You know, we need to be focused on nutrition. And so this is definitely where they are just really lacking in this country. And I do believe that our hospital food, it needs to be better. It needs to be better. We need to be, if you are sick, you need to focus on nutrition. But then again, that's also the chicken and egg situation, because I do believe many people are in the hospitals because of poor lifestyle choices to begin with. We need to be eating good food, real foods outside of the hospital so you don't end up in the hospital. But that is a whole vicious circle that we could spend all day talking about. So yeah, so I just wanted to share with y'all my thoughts. So hopefully you won't find yourself in the situation that I was in, where you're in the hospital for weeks on end. But if you are, hopefully this helps you and gives you ideas of how you can still maintain some bit of healthy food. Again, it's probably not going to be perfect, especially if you cannot afford or you don't have the money to actually go out and get what you were needing or wanting. Now, in saying that, as a Christian, I certainly do believe that that we should be asking God, that He knows our needs, and say, Lord, I am really in need of real food, of your food that will nourish my body, that will honor my body in this circumstance, to give me the things that I need. Please, please provide it. And I think if we just ask and not just give up, that He will provide. I didn't even really have to ask. God provided because of everyone's like donations and everything flooding in. I had the money where I could actually just go to Publix and get what I needed, get the real food that I needed. But on top of that, God provided the friends in my life who already were milling their grains and were excellent, still are excellent bakers of freshly milled grains, and that they were there when I needed them, and that they were willing to come and help me, and give me things, and to provide real food whenever I really needed it. And y'all, I remember the first time I baked bread myself, it was probably 2 months after my husband got shot, that I was finally able to mill my grains, mill my wheat, bake my bread again. And that was nice. I will say that was so wonderful to do something normal that I had done before. That was a rabbit trail. But y'all, if you're looking for real food in the hospital, it's probably not going to happen. But do your best. And again, I want to emphasize that if you are a patient in the hospital, not medical advice, please listen to your doctor, but also just have that conversation with your doctor, because that's what we would do. It's like, hey, he's so like the doctor who was really big on him getting insured, like, no, 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 you need the protein, you need this protein. It's going to help your body heal. And so we just basically showed him like, look, he is getting it. This is what we're giving him. And he was satisfied with it. He was okay with what we were getting for him, because I explained to him like, no, 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 he does not need like all the sugar. We want better ingredients. We don't want non-GMO ingredients. So we're doing what you're telling us to do, just better. So definitely work with your doctor, pray about it, and follow that wisdom, in regards to if you are an actual patient. Because again, Many times they have these restrictions for a reason, so don't just completely throw the restrictions out the window. They're probably there for a reason. But otherwise, let me know in your comments below if you have any other advice to add to this. So this was my advice, and in like one of the extreme circumstances that I pray none of you find yourself in, where we were just long hospital visits, long time. My husband, I will say, it just took him a while before he could really enjoy food again. He was dealing with nausea for a while. And so those were tough times. But it's one of those things where if you yourself are the ones who is recovering or you're sick, all the more important reasons to, first of all, listen to your body. I think often our body tells us what it is needing by what we are craving, but maybe not always, or if you're not in tune with your body. But also just take it slow, give yourself some grace. And when what you can eat, try to let it be the most nutrient dense as you possibly can. And maybe that's just homemade chicken broth that you made, or, full blown grains. It's really up to you. But hopefully this was helpful, y'all. Enjoyed this little chat and a little bit of a behind the scenes of our time in the hospital when all of that happened. But thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all or hear y'all or listen to y'all, whatever it is, in the next episode. Y'all have a great day.